We're back. Oh, yeah, here we go. Vision Zero. I have been looking forward to this meeting for a long time. Ever since I found out that they were becoming a Vision Zero task force, the very first thing that I thought of was, all right, who are the players in this game that will be getting money from your tax-paying money? That's what I wanted to know. And hopefully we're gonna find out tonight who these absolute assholes are that are trying to scam you right now. All right, for those who don't know what Vision Zero is, I'm sure Barth will talk about what the history of it is. But the whole plan is to stop pedestrian deaths with whether it's people getting hit by cars, whether it's by cars on cars, bus on cars, etc. Now, Sweden started this in like 1997. I think they started it, but they didn't actually start having a plan and money until 1999. And here's the reason why I say that. I went through a little chat GPT, and the only reason why I use that is because anything that I ask that is usually not political questions, it's just wanting to know data. So I checked it. How much I checked it between 97 and 99, and 99 was the year that they started actually allocating money to this Vision Zero platform strategy. So in 1999, they had exactly $1.1 billion allocated for the Vision Zero strategy. And you're like, oh, that's not that bad. Well, that's from $1999. And so I did a little inflation calculator, and it's literally double of what it would be right now. So, like, I think it's just over, it's 2.01, let's just call it $2 billion. Right off the bat. Right off the bat. So, I'm just going to go, the numbers that I gave you will just be following it. So 1999 was 1 billion, 2000 was 220 million, '01 190, and then 180, and then 170, 160, 1.2, 130, wait, 1.2, no, 140 billion, 140 million. 2007 was 130 million, 120, 130, 140. And so I'm like, you know what? Instead of just doing it year by year, let's just go from 1999 to 2020, which was $3.3 billion. But so I asked it, it's like, all right, now give me, so I did 1999 to 2023, which was 4.5 billion. I said, now account for inflation. And they said, well, if we were going to say it's 2% inflation per year, then it would be this. So it says 5.5 to 6.6 billion dollars over that amount of time. And guess what, folks? People are still dying. That's right. After almost 30 years and multiple billions of dollars spent on this dipshit plan, it has not solved the actual issue. Because guess what? You're still going to have it no matter what. Just like homeless people, you're always going to have homeless people. Give me a time in any part of history where there was zero homelessness, all right? All right. Anyway, let's get to this, because I'm sure this video is going to be very frustrating.
Vision Zero Task Force member, so we'll go ahead and kick off the first meeting. We will have all the task force members introduce themselves here in a minute. But let me just start by saying I'm John Barth. I'm a member of the City County Council representing District 7. I appreciate the President's confidence in me and allowing me to chair this brand new task force that has a very important charge that we need to accomplish. So I'd like to thank him. I'd like to thank the Indianapolis City County Council for supporting the vision behind Vision Zero and the structure of it, which you are seeing now today. I'd also like to thank our partners at DPW, and especially Director Hergert, who's with us, who has worked diligently and with a lot of flexibility behind the scenes with
Here's where you're, all right, so hold on. This is the part that annoys me so much. I don't know, maybe I'm just toot my own horn, but like when people say, now that I have planted that seed in you, You're welcome. You're going to hear that constantly. Good luck out there. Try and not get annoyed.
And others developing the Vision Zero ordinance that was passed and signed into law. And now, as we say in my day job, we are widening the circle to include a lot more people to be involved in this. And I'll talk about that here in a minute as to why the circle is being widened and why that's so important. So today's meeting is really a kickoff meeting. It's aimed at introducing the mission of the task force, discussing the next steps, introducing the task force members to each other. In many cases, they're meeting each other for the first time, and introducing the task force members to the broader community. I am going to start today with some overall introduction comments, and then I'll turn it over to the members to introduce themselves. I do want to note that the planning process is the most important thing that we're going to do. We're going to create the action plan associated with the Vision Zero task force, and that's what these folks on the task force are going to be doing. I'm going to be doing that work in public and really seeking out and desiring the input from the public. That's going to come,
Are you getting it now?
especially as we dig into this and start having more work product. And I will describe to you here in a minute what the work product is, or actually our friends from our consultants will describe to you the work that they're doing now and what comes next. And that process will be very intentional in getting a lot of feedback, not only from this multi-disciplinary team, but also broadly from folks across the city.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So let me some of this stuff I'm going to say now is a lot of the people here today are really passionate about this issue, and you know what we're doing. But some folks are going to be brand new to this. And in fact, some people on the task force are newer to this concept than others, so they won't know a huge amount about it yet, or a minimal amount. So part of what we're doing today is really getting everybody to the same place and understanding both the task in front of us and what the concept and the vision of Vision Zero is. So bear with us if you're already an expert on Vision Zero, because we have some work to do to make sure we have everybody caught up and at the same place.
Yeah, catch us up, Barth.
A few comments to start. Vision Zero is a global initiative aimed at eliminating all traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries while ensuring safe, equitable mobility for everyone. This was launched originally in Europe in the 90s.
Sweden in I believe it was 97, but like I said, they didn't start actually strategizing until 99 from money.
It shifts the focus from merely reducing accidents to creating a transportation system where no loss of life is acceptable. A key component of Vision Zero is shared responsibility. Success requires collaboration across all levels of government and communities, from engineers and planners designing safer streets to law enforcement ensuring traffic laws are followed, to public health workers promoting safety education. Every department in the city has a responsibility to contribute to the culture of safety. And the responsibility extends beyond the city, county council, and the government enterprise. Advocates, community leaders, and neighbors all play a role in this effort by meaningfully engaging in what will be a long process. This unified approach.
It basically, it's never going to stop. Almost 30 years. Almost 30 years, right? And it still has not solved the issue. Guess what? It's going to happen no matter what. And I will tell you, at the end of this video, if not, I might just, spoil it for you, but I already know how to fix all of it. And I will tell you what Sweden is doing. I'm trying to curb some of it and expect things to get worse for money. I will tell you this right now. The way that Sweden does it, it's going to get very expensive for for a few things, which is not entirely a bad thing. Well, not for me, but definitely for new people.
Approach prioritizes vulnerable road users, such as pedestrians, cyclists, those with mobility impairments, and focuses on designing streets that reduce conflicts with motor vehicles.
And let's not forget, too, bicyclists are a problem. These grape smugglers don't obey the same rules as that cars do. There's this asshole I think Indie pedestrian crisis or something. I think it was him or some other grape smuggler posted a video of the bicyclist just going through a red light. But yet, you're complaining that it's like, well, people should watch out for me. It's like, you're going through a red light, my man. There's no reason for that. If you want to be a part of the road like a car, then you need to obey the same rules. Otherwise, we can just start charging you more, saying, okay, now a bicycle has to have a license. All right, now a bicycle has to have turn signals. Yeah, and keep it going and keep it going.
Many U.S. cities, including Columbus, Ohio, who I have, and I know anyone who paid attention to the lengthy process to get here knows that Councilor Nielsen and I really engaged pretty thoroughly with some leaders in Columbus, and we're lucky, and you'll meet later, to have a consultant who has meaningful and long-term experience with the Columbus experience.
I guarantee you, whoever that is, that's the scam. That's the snake oil salesman.
But I had the opportunity to spend time in Columbus, Ohio, and plus virtual calls to really learn how they've done their work. And it's been impressive. And one of the things that has really jumped out at me from meeting them was just how the culture of Vision Zero seems to have really taken hold in city government in Columbus, and how they had a real focused method of designing the action plan, implementing the action plan, and thinking it through very carefully. And so that is being somewhat of a true north for me, because I think what they have accomplished is meaningful and significant and impressive. So by joining this movement, we are committing to work together to create a safer, more livable city, and to meet the ambitious goal we have of eliminating all fatal and serious crashes on city streets by 2035, which was established in Proposal 224. I do want to restate that this is a multidisciplinary, multi-department, multi-agency process, and we have to get it right. The prioritization that comes with it is part of how we will make sure that we are moving deliberately and intentionally towards the goal of in 2035 for Marion County. I do want to just restate that again, because part of what we're doing with Vision Zero is getting this across city, across discipline team, plus the input of the community to really think hard about what this action plan is and how we're going to execute it. Part of what really matters is the implementation and the prioritization. And I think that's a challenge sometimes, because we'll have to make some tough choices about what comes first and what we prioritize first. We can't pretend that we don't have significant and ongoing, hopefully to be resolved in this or upcoming sessions of the General Assembly, but we 100% have a deficit when it comes to equity as far as funding.
He's talking about the road funding. Well, guess what, pal? Guess what? Don't spend money on DE training for potholes, dummy.
Infrastructure in Indianapolis is something we've dealt with and struggled with for a long time. But by really thinking hard and
by the way, this whole road funding formula could have been fixed when Democrats were in control. But guess what? They didn't want to.
Partnering internally and externally and coming up with those priorities, we will start chipping away at this problem and get to our goal by 2035. Also, we can't pretend that there's not significant challenges with attracting police officers right now. We've had too few officers for a long time.
Why do you think that is? Hey, why do you think that is, huh? Maybe because your prosecutor, the guy that you helped out, that you and your party, dipshit.
And that impacts our ability.
The prosecutor is giving people back their license after they've had multiple felonies, multiple driving violations, speeding, and they get their license back. There was some lady on Mirror Indy like a month or so ago, and they had an article about getting her license back, and she had like a DUI charge and a felony gun charge like within like a couple of years, and you're like, okay, that's the people that are gonna have their license back. Awesome, great! I can't wait to see what happens with that.
On the amount of enforcement that I know that I and others would like to see, but there's ways around that. We have to think that.
But there's not ways around that. Well, actually, there are, and this is what they want to do. They want to bring in red light cameras, and maybe you should see who's going to be affected by that the most. You're not going to like the answer, Democrats.
Forces us to think hard about other opportunities and technology when it comes to enforcement, although that requires input from the General Assembly as well. But I guess my point in making those last comments is just to acknowledge that doing this work is a long-term strategy that involves making a clear plan that is executed with a line of sight as to what we universally agree are the priorities, but recognizing we have some limitations and we have to do everything we can to mitigate
Enforce
those.
the fucking law. That's all you
I
have
think
to
that's
do.
an important point because there's challenges everywhere around the city, and we'd love to make these changes as fast as possible, but doing this real disciplined approach, it gives all of us a way of pulling from the same end of the rope to achieve the goal that we all have. And to conclude this section is to just say there's a real intentionality here that the three counselors you see, and the two counselors sitting next to me when we were writing this proposal and thinking about it carefully, is that the first iteration of it will be in this summer of 2025. And we picked that date to make sure we had a version of it done by then, so it would be done before the budget. The budget is what matters when it comes to this, and making sure that we start to allocate dollars to the strategies and make sure that they're executable, because it's easy. Being someone who's spent my entire life in and around government, I've seen my fair share of plans that have been made that everyone supported that no one ever saw again, right? But that's not what's going to happen here. A, because we have this task force that's going to meet in public. B, because we have the community to hold us accountable. And
Yeah.
C, because we designed
Guess what? Guess what? I'm going to email John Barth today after this video, and I guarantee you he will not message me back. I'm going to email him, I'm going to email Nielsen, and I'm going to email Cahill. And I guarantee you only one of those people are going to email me back.
in a way that connected the budget process to this planning process. So believe me, I understand that sounds bureaucratic, but when you've been working in and around state bureaucracies as long as I have, and city bureaucracies, you learn that knowing the bureaucracy and knowing how to work within it is how you get things done. And so just a little background on how we got there and how the timing all works out. And then on an annual basis, the plan will be updated again with intentionality around the budget process, having this plan feed into the budget process. Okay, so every member here, as I've said, is a critical part of this process, and I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves. So I'm going to ask them to
What a scam.
introduce
Man,
themselves,
Vision Zero
what
is
their
such a scam.
position
Looking at these
is,
numbers right now.
what they're filling as far as the slot that was designated in the ordinance that created the task force, and who the appointing authority was. So, for example, I'm John Barth, a member of the City County Council.
Surprised he didn't say his pronouns.
I'm appointed in one of the slots for 3 members of the City County Council, and I was appointed by the council president. And so all the members of the task force know. There'll be time for you to weigh in with any comments on the meeting towards the end, and ask any questions of the consultants here as we get further into the meeting. But with that, and if this is your first time sitting up here, you just turn this thing on by taking the little lever and pulling it towards you, and it'll light up. So let me go to my left.
Thank you, Chairman Barth. My name is Andy Nielsen. I serve as City County Councilor.
I want to pause this for a second because this is blowing my mind right now. I'm doing this inflation calculator right now. That's what I keep looking down at. Check this out. 160 million dollars in 2013 is worth 216 million dollars today. How crazy is that? I mean, that's just wild in just over 10 years. Bananas.
For District 14 on the east side. So I'm serving one of the 3 council appointments as well, appointed by President Osili.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Derek Cahill, City County Council Counselor, District 23 on the south side.
Thank you, Chairman Barth. Brandon Herget, Director DPW, appointed by Mayor Hogsett.
Abby Hansen, not Sarah Reardon, soon to be controller, and I was appointed by the mayor.
She's going to be the controller, huh? We are totally screwed.
Megan Vukasic, Director for the Department of Metropolitan Development, and I was appointed by Mayor Hogsett.
Thank you, Chair. Abby Brands, I'm the Director for the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services, and I'm the mayoral appointee.
ENS is probably the worst department there is. And Abby Brand, when I become mayor, Abby Brand will be fired. Hergy will be fired.
Good afternoon.
You're on
Ernest
notice.
Malone, currently serve as the Chief of Fire for the Indianapolis Fire Department, and it's a mayoral appointment according to the proposed statute. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Aaron Vogel, Indianapolis Public Transportation Corporation, Chief Operating Officer and a mayor's appointee.
My name is Damon Richards. I am a City Council appointee. I am the recreational cyclist representative.
Bunch of brain
Good
rot.
afternoon. My name is Lucas Sneekamp. I'm a deputy prosecutor with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, here on behalf of the Prosecutor's Office, appointed by the Council President.
Good afternoon, everyone. Addison Pollock, Director of Community Engagement with AARP Indiana. I'm here representing the older adult community and was appointed by the council.
What?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Taylor Firestein, Walk and Bike Program Coordinator with Health by Design. I was appointed by the City County Council, representing our advocacy community, and I serve as a Walk and Bike Program Coordinator with nonprofit Health by Design.
There it is, folks. That's our guy. That's our guy who is going to be scamming all of you. Let's look into this.
Thanks to you all, and thanks to you all for your willingness to serve and your willingness to commit to this very significant task we have ahead of us. I deeply appreciate it. I know sitting here today, I think I can speak for my 2 fellow counselors that being here and kicking this off and having human beings actually starting to do this work and having the consulting team here to really launch us is important. It's the realization of a vision not only that we had, but many of the folks on the task force who have had as well, plus many of the folks out in the community and the advocacy community. So this is, I don't want to let this moment pass without acknowledging how meaningful and important it is to have this fruition actually come true. So thank you all, deeply appreciated. Okay, so that's the first item on our agenda. The next is an overview of the task force and next steps. This will be shorter. As outlined in Proposal 224, our overarching task is to eliminate all fatal and serious crashes on city streets by 2035. To do this, the council created this task force of 15 people, as noted earlier, intentionally making it a multidisciplinary group who will all have a role to play with your diverse backgrounds and perspectives. We're going to use the backgrounds and expertise to create the Vision Zero action plan, and that will be our tool to implement the approaches used to achieve the 2035 goal, focusing on areas such as improvement in high injury network corridors. Creating and overseeing the action plan is our most important task and must be completed by July 1, 2025, as noted earlier, prior to the annual budget. To support this group in doing the work, the city will hire a Vision Zero administrator early next year, and I do want to spend just a second on that. Something that is really important is making sure not only that we create this action plan, that there's so many people involved, as I have been saying throughout this introduction, but that there's a structure internally created to make sure that there is a person who wakes up thinking about this every day, right? So there will be, and I can defer to Mr. Hergert if there's anything else to add, but there's the wheels are turning to finalize the scope of responsibilities and to post the job, et cetera. So that happens early next year.
So we got another
$80,000
to $100,000 we have to
was making sure that we
account for.
had this position in place, so we have someone to own this process internally. So that's exciting.
All right, I'm going to pause it right now. So I did, this is just base calculations right now of how much they have spent on Vision Zero. Sweden has spent. It is between 5.6 and how much was the other one? What was it? 5.6 and 6.6, whatever it was. And I adjusted it for inflation, 5.5 to 6.6 billion. Yeah, I adjusted it for inflation. It is about that. It's more like 7.6, really. I'm trying to figure out this 1999 number, if it really was 1.1 billion, or if they were just spreading that 1.1 billion over multiple years. But anyway, from 2000 to 2023, it was $5.6 billion.
And also thanks to Brandon, we have already an existing relationship with Burgess and Nipel, who will handle the next segment of the meeting, a concept presentation on Vision Zero, and also an overview of what they're doing for us, not only now, but next steps. There's three folks here from Burgess. We're going to hear from Maria. Maria, would you mind, when you go to your part, would you mind, please go ahead and come up. As I mentioned earlier, we're excited to have Maria working with us. She has a lot of experience in this and has worked closely with the folks in Columbus, Ohio. But before you kick things off, would you mind just giving us a little snapshot of your background so folks can know?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here. I am Maria Cantrell, educated as an engineer. But from 2019 to 2023, I was the Vision Zero coordinator for the city of Columbus.
Look at that. I see some familiar faces in the crowd. Very, very interesting. I can't wait to see what will happen.
So I started their Vision Zero plan from its infancy and did it for 4 years. And I was that person that woke up thinking about it every day. And about a year ago, I saw an opportunity to take what I had learned and help other cities and states around the country get to zero too. So I joined BNN because I knew that they understood safety and were going to help me do that in other places. So here I am. You found me, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more about Vision Zero in general and what we're doing here with our role for you. So
wonderful.
Hopefully that's enough in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you. And if other folks if they have a question when you get done with your presentation, they can ask, but
Yeah.
go ahead and jump in.
Great. All right, so just a little bit of a quick snapshot about Vision Zero. So the next slide talks a little bit about our team. Unfortunately, Jason had to go on vacation, so he's not here today, but he's local to Indianapolis, and Jeremy is with me as well. But we're our primary contacts for you here for this task. But what we're doing right now through the end of the year is starting a process on gathering information for the city on what Vision Zero is, what it means for Indianapolis, doing a little bit of a peer exchange with some other key cities on how they approached Vision Zero. I certainly understand Columbus really well, but we've engaged with them. We're also in the process of engaging with the city of Charlotte, Denver, and maybe we'll talk to a couple others as well. And then gathering information on where you all are as it relates to what resources you have, and kind of getting a sense of, based on what we know Vision Zero is and where it needs to be and what resources you have, kind of setting you up for that next step to get your action plan together. But before we get into that, I kind of want to talk a little bit Vision Zero 101 for those of you that don't have that background and experience. So getting to the next slide, Vision Zero and the safe system approach. These are the core principles for Vision Zero. Really, again, you've heard Councilor Barth talk about, again, death and serious injuries are unacceptable. We've always cared about safety, traffic and transportation safety, but I think for a long time we've just been like, yeah, car crashes happen. But there's 40,000 plus vehicular crashes, fatal crashes that happen in America every year. And that's not acceptable. We need to change our mindset around that. So that's one of those first principles. Again, also considering that humans make mistakes, but they shouldn't die for that. So really accommodating those mistakes.
Oh boy, if only I didn't have consequences to my actions. Oh boy.
As we approach this plan, people are human. We need to build a system that tolerates that humanity. And again, that we're vulnerable. So we can only take so much force in a crash. So we need to lessen that force in how we approach our transportation system and think about science and kinetic energy and speeds and how that all comes into play.
You know, I just looked this up. There are, in the U.S., for example, so I want to know how many heart disease deaths per year. Just 700,000 in the U.S. in 2020. Guess how many crash-related deaths? 42,000. Shut the fuck up.
Some of those principles in there as well. Responsibility is shared. We've talked about that. That's why we have such a variety of folks from different backgrounds here on this task force. Again, the safety is proactive. So we're going to look at crash data to see where crashes have occurred. We're going to figure out a high injury network. You know, where are some of those crashes happening? But it's not just only looking where they're happening, but we also have a sense of where are they likely to happen. You've all heard of, oh man, this crash waiting to happen, right? We've all heard it. You've seen that spot.
Yeah, from
we
people.
We want to take that into account as well. And then again, redundancy is critical. And with that, what we mean is, and it might be a little bit hard to see on that slide, but there are pieces to this pie, this safe system approach, where we want safe people, safe behaviors. We want to talk about that. Safe vehicles, how vehicles are designed or how they're utilized. We see already in our cars, we've got airbags and lane assist on our vehicles, but that's part of that overall system. Safe speeds comes into play, how we design our streets, safe streets, and also that post-crash care. How we mitigate a crash when a crash happens, how fast we can get there. Again, all these pieces come into play, and when you layer them together, that redundancy helps reduce the likelihood of that crash being a fatal or serious injury outcome. But again, that responsibility is shared, is again a really big piece that we're highlighting here with this task force. Moving on to the next slide, again, that multidisciplinary team. I think we're kind of beating that horse today, but it comes from not just infrastructure and DPW, but again, everybody here, your expertise will come into play, and the greater public too. I mean, we want to ask everyone, I like the phrase, driving is a shared responsibility, or it's a group activity. Driving is a group activity. What a thought.
What a thought.
It's not just me and how fast I can get somewhere, and I love to drive. I don't want to take driving away, right?
Hey man, it's not just about getting a point to A to B, man. It's just about the journey, man. That's all. But man, we're all in this together, bro. Hey, if we just be nice to each other, we'll be all cool. Well, guess what? I want to drive somewhere. I want to get to my destination as safely and as fast as possible. So just get the fuck out of my way.
I'm not suddenly going to change into a cyclist, but I want to care about when I'm driving to look out for people who are riding their bikes, people who are walking, people who need to get to their transit. So again, that idea that we're all doing this together. Again, going to the next slide, I see this task force as that steering committee, and whether it's your Vision Zero action plan or any type of safety action plan, we look to have this diverse type of group, again, that commitment from your leadership, your mayor's office, your city council, again, certainly including public works and neighborhood departments, certainly safety, police and fire take such a large component towards that shared responsibility, public health. But again, the outside partners as well really have an influence on that shared responsibility, including the transit agencies, your local business partners. We all have loud business partners in our cities that can really have a strong influence on some of the outcomes and even prioritization of what projects get done. I'm sure that never happens here. Our Department of Transportation as well. So all of these agencies can have an influence and come into play as we develop our shared responsibility. So one of the things that I am going to be asking of all of you for this first phase as we do some of our background gathering is I do need to be able to reach out and talk to either you or a dedicated person from you so I can get some data gathering. Who is the person that I need to talk to find out what research sources you have? How do you compare to other cities? To help us do some of that benchmarking and understanding of, are you struggling with staff? Do you have this type of funding available? How do you compare? And this is sort of some of that background activity that we are doing here at BNN to get you sort of set up to be able to hit the ground running to do this action plan that you want to have done in time for, or at least a draft done in time for a budget next summer. So you might not have an answer for me today, but I do need that. I'm asking you to think about that as a contact person for me or someone for me to talk to within each of your agencies, because we got a short time frame here to kind of get that done.
We will ensure that you get the right names.
Okay. Again, moving forward a little bit more, again, we said it's not like we didn't care about traffic safety before, right? I mean, obviously we did. I think the shift in mindset and even the federal government has really been pumping quite a bit of funding into doing safety action plans and shifting the way.
I cannot stand these people. Traffic deaths are preventable, but how many of them, huh? Because Sweden's been trying it for 30 years, and so far people are still dying. Requires perfect human behavior. Integrate human failing in the approach. Prevents crashes. Prevent fatal and severe crashes. Basically what it is, they all want you programmed to do the same. This is just the beginning of a social credit score. That's all.
Approach traffic safety, but it's kind of, again, getting away from that thought that traffic crashes happen. Oh well, 40,000 people is not an oh well. I mean, one plane crashes and it's news media for weeks upon end, right? But we have 40,000 people dying in America.
Well, not everybody can
year.
fly a plane
and,
either.
Probably upwards of 100
There's a lot of
in a city this
restrictions to
size
having a
every
license
year.
to fly a plane.
That should be headline news.
Hey, dummy. If you want to make getting a driver's license a little bit harder, I'm all for that. Let's start off with you have to know the English language, and we're also going to have an IQ test. Why don't we start off with that, and then I guarantee you we'll cut the deaths in probably a quarter, right? Quarter of the deaths will now be gone. Don't have to worry about those. And then if people have multiple DUIs over multiple years, their license is automatically suspended for however long, okay? And then depending on how many speeding tickets they get within a certain area, say they only allowed like 2 speeding tickets in a year, right? $500 each, because that's how much it is for a construction zone, whether it's people there or not, which is crazy to me. But then they're on a watch list. I don't know. Probably not the greatest idea, but it's an idea. I'm open to ideas about it.
You are clearly recognizing that and wanting to do something about it. So again, getting away from expecting people to behave perfectly. We know that people do not always use the crosswalk. That should not be punishable by death, right? We need to think about, I like to walk the shortest distance too. That does not make me a criminal. That, ideally, I would always use a crosswalk, but we need to think about normal human behavior. People have needs. They need to get where they want to go. The priority needs to be getting people home safely at the end of the day. And then shifting our thought from just preventing crashes to really focusing the priority on
All
those.
right, hold on, shut up. All right, let's look at this one. Boom. This is the fatal crash review report. I've done a video on it before. Let's look at this. Does a motorist have a prior serious driving offense? He had a felony in 2016, 2 criminal misdemeanors, 13 infractions, and 1 ordinance violation. Now, one would have to ask, why does that person still have their driver's license? If you want this problem to stop, there's going to have to be consequences to actions. Stop doing this feminine, passive-aggressive behavior. This whole plan is bullshit, okay?
Fatal and serious injury crashes. Property damage crashes are a bad day. Gosh, you hate it when somebody broke your mirror off the side of your car and sideswiped you. And that can be really hard for a lot of people. But our focus really needs to prioritize that high injury network of streets on those worst crashes. And again, no more of this individual responsibility. Here's your road. Good luck. Hope you get there. Nope. Again, we're going to go on for a systems approach.
Good God.
Everybody's in. We're doing this together to prioritize safety. And again, from that engineering standpoint, we've really often focused on level of service and getting cars flush through our roads as quickly and efficiently as possible. We're engineers and we're efficient. Great. Well, that can still be important.
Yeah, because you have to commute to work. You have to commute to get groceries. You have to commute to pick up your children from school or from daycare.
Should still be important after safety. Next slide, please.
Let's find out.
And this was an image that we created for Vision Zero Columbus.
Look, they're jaywalking.
But it was the result of data that a lot of the streets that we found on our high injury network, looking at data, and certainly we're going to prioritize where we want to do our projects based on data. They tended to be the streets that had long distances between, traffic controlled, whether that's a stop sign or a signal, a crosswalk where, you were requiring a vehicle to come to a stop. So a controlled stopping for people, vulnerable road users to cross. Long distances between those locations. Wide streets where generally cars felt more comfortable driving, or people driving cars felt more comfortable driving quickly. Often it might lack good lighting to see, other cars coming and other people, vulnerable road users, and potentially not enough infrastructure for the vulnerable road users as well. So these were just trends that we found comprised of that anatomy of a dangerous street. But the data will point to where you want to prioritize your projects, and that will certainly help drive your action plan as well. In Columbus, we were able to utilize funding to change this particular corridor, and the next slide will show you what a transformation may look like. So we were able to seek out funding, and this is a project along Livingston Avenue, and the revised cross-section or image will look something more like this, where you have bike lanes. It's
oh, look, it went from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And I don't know if anybody else is paying attention, but look, there's no way for emergency vehicles to get through. So, and also, hey, guess what? If a car breaks down on here, where are you going to go, huh? You got nowhere to push it. You just got to keep going, and now you're going to clog up that entire lane with a broken down car. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Vision Zero. We salute your incompetence. Thank you very much.
Bike lanes, crosswalks, the planted median helps manage some of the speeds. It just doesn't feel like a wide open runway, right? But it does accommodate all road users. There's better lighting. So these are some of the general concepts that we're trying to accommodate all road users. We're not trying to get to gridlock, and we still care about moving all road users, but we want to do it in a safe manner. And then, again, we still want to accommodate human behavior. The idea that risky behaviors, a lot of times you'll see in media reporting, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about anybody that might be reporting on this right now, but the idea is people, we're human. We do these things, right? I myself have been guilty of speeding. I like to drive fast, but I have to be mindful. I'm like, oh yes, I need to look out for other people. I know I can drive fast safely, but I don't know who's going to jump out in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's what I need to think about, right? So these human behaviors, they happen, and we...
Especially with like the crackhead homeless, see it all the time. Go to Raymond and Shelby. Dude, I was there the other day, or the other week, and I saw some dude just walking in the middle of traffic. Like, in the middle of Raymond and Shelby. Like, how is that preventable? Tell me.
We need to think about them in our traffic and transportation system. We want to encourage people to have safe behaviors, but it doesn't always happen. And, you know, sometimes people just have poor judgment. Again, the death sentence is not acceptable. And so, again, really focusing on our system overall. And then the next slide, it really talks about, with those risky behaviors, we do want to influence culture too. But I do think that will take time. And Indianapolis won't do it alone. I think culture in America and in your state will all take a lot of influences, again, from everyone.
What the fuck?
And I like this comparison with, if you think about cultural acceptance around tobacco use. For those of you that were
I guarantee you, most of those people in that room smoke.
around in the 80s and could remember it,
Ooh, man.
where I lived,
What a
you could smoke
time.
in a restaurant, or you maybe had a smoking section in a restaurant.
Based.
And then that went away. And you could even, there was a smoking section on an airplane. I remember being a little kid, and I was in the row right in front of, in an international flight.
What a time
right in front
to
of the
be
smoking
alive.
section, and what a joke. Could you imagine smoking on a plane now? I mean,
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
Oh, sir, there's no smoking on airplanes.
I know. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Don't worry about it. I'll be quick.
Sir, if you like that, I'll have to report you to the FAA.
Stacy, do you know when the first commercial flight went smokeless?
No.
1973. And did you know that in 1969, when smoking was allowed on all flights, we put a man on the moon?
We
I had no
salute you.
idea.
Look. You know what that is? That's a remnant of a better time.
Yep.
But they welded it shut. And it starts with ashtrays, and it ends with all of our precious freedoms being stripped away.
Every day.
I remember back in the day when you got on a plane and you knew you were in for a good time. Little smoking, a little drinking. And the stewardesses, Stacy, you come from a proud tradition of blazing hot stewardesses.
Back in the day.
And now you can't do one damn thing without someone reporting you to the Department of Homeland Security.
Scumbags.
Am I right?
That's right. You listen to Don.
I had to take my pants off and nibble my Old Spice down to 3 ounces just to get on the plane, Stacy.
They made me throw out my mouthwash.
I had to give up my bath jellies.
They made me breastfeed some old man.
That's what I'm talking about.
What?
But we don't have to take it, Stacy. Like Henry David Thoreau and Rosa Parks and David Lee Roth when he left Van Halen, we can say enough. Enough injustice. And when you and I are old and gray, we can look back on this and remember when we were 30,000 feet above God's green earth and we smoked one. We smoked one for America!
These were the days. Yeah, that's right. Hell yeah. Anyway.
what a concept, right? But what did it take for that shift in acceptance for smoking? And I'm not saying this for anyone here who isn't a smoker to make you feel bad. And I say this because I'm married.
Wait a minute. First you were like, oh, smoking is disgusting. And now you're like, hey, I don't mean to make anybody feel bad about smoking, though.
To a smoker, but he hides it. If he needs a cigarette, he goes in the garage so the neighbors don't see him, right?
No, actually, we just smoke in our own home like of adults. Hey, guess what? Hold on again. You're going to make me do this again, aren't you?
Because after dinner, everyone ought to have a cigar. So I tried it. Well, the rest is history. I'm still smoking stogies. I love it, and he introduced me to something really good. And I know now the next question. Knowing you, being the interviewer that you are, digging in deep all the time, you will say now, what does your wife think about that?
You, incel.
Let me ask you something. When my wife's father has introduced me to stogies, what is she going to say?
Huh?
She's not going to say my father made a mistake, because her father never makes a mistake.
Every time.
So therefore, it is okay. I can smoke stogies around her. I can smoke stogies in my house. First of all, because her father introduced me to stogies, and second of all, because I'm a stud.
That's right.
I'm ballsy. I don't take no shit from anyone.
Hell yeah.
I smoke my stogie anywhere I want. I don't have to find a hideout place like you.
That's right. We are hiding out in the garage to have a burner. No, 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 Maria. We will be smoking them in our home. Hey, I'm sorry, Maria. I'm sorry that your simp husband or your simp boyfriend has to go and hide in the garage, but not us real men. We're smoking them in the home.
I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just talking about cultural acceptance,
Oh, you
right?
are so bad
Your
at this
doctor
right
told you
now.
it wasn't safe or healthy. Your TV media changed, and if there's a
Maria,
cigarette on
you
the
are
show, you get
awful.
a warning that the show is maybe more adult or more mature. Your business no longer lets you smoke within so many feet of the building. There's laws that have changed. All these layers have come into play to change that culture, and I do think that is part of what will need to influence maybe some of the other behaviors like speeding or other safe transportation behaviors.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you something. Now that people can't smoke indoors, has that stayed the same with people smoking, or has there been a drop in smoking? And if there has been a drop in smoking, how much of a drop has there been smoking? But I think we should all be clear. People still smoke, whether it's burners, whether it's vaping, whether it's with a bowl or a pipe or whatever. Last I checked, people are still smoking meth.
Next slide, please.
She is awful at
and
this.
again, we are seeing some of these changes with engineering culture, and certainly, in my conversations with DPW, I mean, I just want to hug your DPW staff because they already embrace all these things. But in other places, I certainly see, challenges with, we still got to meet that level of service, and we expect perfect behavior from, we put that pedestrian push button in, and they need to use it. The people need to use it. I still see that in certain other places, or that location, it must meet this warrant, and I can't use my engineering judgment, I need a warrant, And so trying to get people that have been trained for decades to do things a certain way and to think in this Vision Zero capacity. We did an engineering improvement. Okay, well, did you look at it afterwards? Is it better? Is it safer? These are the types of things we're thinking about, and I know that you have amazing, great staff already that are doing a lot of these great things. So congratulations, you do have that. But moving along, we do still want to influence speed. And I think where I saw the greatest ability to reduce fatal and serious injury outcomes is where you had the ability to affect speed. And it's not just speeding, but where you could get the initial speed set to something that is a safe speed. And I know a lot of that is controlled by legislation in a lot of places. So that'll be part of the conversations we have as we look at this plan. Because sometimes even the legal speed
You're an idiot. You're just an idiot. Because if you were to say we're going to lower the speed limit to 15 miles per hour, right? So what if they're getting hit by a Kia Optima is different than getting hit by a Chevy truck at 15 miles per hour? These people are so fucking incompetent. Like, I don't know who thought it was a good idea to hire this lady. And there are so many people that could dog on this person more. I am just being nice and sweet about it.
Necessarily the speed that we think is safe. So we'll look at, again, we talked about culture and education already. I do believe enforcement of some kind. And again, we talked about we have resources may be stretched. That's not just in Indianapolis. We see that everywhere where...
I actually know where you don't see that at. You don't see that in red counties. You don't have that problem in red counties for some reason. I wonder why that is.
Law enforcement is needs more resources, but what does enforcement look like? And getting creative and thinking about other things on what that could be. Again, street design can come into self-enforcing roads. We want to look at that. And again, laws. But all these things can affect the getting safer speed outcomes. But I truly believe that speed component has the greatest influence on reducing fatal and serious injury outcomes. So again, with your current DPW staff, you have a great amount of successes already in place. So the next slide just shows, you know, you may have called it complete streets in the past, but there are a lot of things that are currently already happening.
Hey, look at all the money that we spent. Wow. Oh, crap.
Vulnerable road user type infrastructure pieces going into place, like converting around intersections to roundabouts. Those are the type of elements that really, you know, affect the safer outcomes. So we want to highlight where some of that is happening, or potentially look at where we want to get additional funding to do more of these things. So again, want to maybe capture, integrate policies to build upon what is already happening. So again, with kind of summing this up, because I don't want to take up all the time, and I know it's getting into the evening hours, we're so glad, I'm so glad to have had your leadership, direction, and support, because that, I think, will really drive this to be a strong plan. And then we will have that collaboration to look at what everybody's doing. I think really building on the successful things that you guys are, all of your agencies are already doing. We want to highlight that, build that up, make sure that everybody knows about the things you're already doing, so that we're not living in silos or reinventing the wheels. Like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did this? And I'm like, oh, well, didn't you already know that police and fire already do these events that speak to that? So we don't need to rebuild that or redo that type of activity. Again, well, we definitely need to include and think about a communication and public engagement plan as part of the long-term action plan. You don't want to start putting together strategies and projects and without really that community engagement piece. That's really important to include. And again, overall, we're trying to shift hearts and minds and cultures as part of this collaborative plan. So again, that whole idea of, you know, it's not just about me, but driving is a group activity, right? And then it's going to take time. I mean, we have a short timeline for getting this first action plan put together, but, you know, that keys to success is having the time to dedicate to this activity and implementing the strategies that we want to do. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah,
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to a task force member.
We only have like
to
10
ask
minutes
questions.
left, so that's
Was
good.
there one more slide with anything on?
Oh,
what to
yeah, there might be
expect?
one more slide.
Yep. We really want to hear from you, Marina.
Yeah. I just highlighted, I'm like, I need a contact person. But yeah, we're going to just be building that framework for this Vision Zero plan. We will have a December presentation for you on, you know, what we've done at BNN. And you had mentioned the summer of 2025 to have a draft plan in place. So yeah.
Thank you. And in December, our next meeting, you'll be reporting out on some of the what you learned about the comparisons with other cities,
Yep.
and as well as like other work that needs to be done in advance of putting the plan together. So that will be an important one. That'll be anytime we have work product, we're going to have the opportunity for public engagement and public comment. So you'll be here for that, to hear folks and what they have to say based on the comments that you'll present. Okay, I do want to turn it over to let someone else talk besides me. So I'm going to turn it over to task force members. Just bear with me, just 2 quick points. One, I just want to restate I think you made a really good point about culture change happening over time. And again, I really appreciate your comments about DPW and especially lately and in the last several years, at least since the pandemic, a really meaningful movement in thinking about how to make these kind of changes, so much so that a colleague of mine was in town and just kept raving about the pedestrian-friendly infrastructure that she saw. And so to see our city through someone else's eyes and to really recognize the incredibly hard work that DPW has done, I think is really important. So thank you for pointing that out. But also just the culture change you noted just across the board, not in the city, but just broadly, driving as a group sport, I thought was a good point. And I'll just reinforce that by saying I spoke to fourth graders at IPS School 84 yesterday, and I mentioned the smoking ban I passed many years ago. And for the rest of the time I was there, all they did was ask me if I could pass a smoking ban in Las Vegas, and one in Omaha where they visited, and every other place they could think where there might be smoking, and in their grandpa's house. So those kids really did not want to have anything to do with smoking, which is a very significant change, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's called fascism, if I remember right.
For the course of like 30, 40 years. And then I'm just going to close my comments here with saying this. Quick context change, but in my first term, I passed a proposal that funded a Percent for Art program. Vetoed, and then later passed by then Councilor Johnson. But I'm on the committee that selects the projects to be funded. And
of course
last
you
night
are.
we passed and supported a really transformative investment in public art for Indianapolis that will be in front of the Elenco building when it's built. And it made me think about just the change from having to convince people back in 2014 to even pass that and to invest in it, to now when we've made this sculpture by a Chinese artist as center point of a whole new business district and the entry point when you cross over the Henry Bridge into this new district. That's a meaningful and important change that's happened over 10 years, and that's happened because of that ordinance and the support it got over time. This is similar conceptually to what you just said. We passed this, now we're going to reorient how we think about these things and how we do these things and prioritize safety, and that takes a minute, so we really have to do the hard work to get us there. Okay. Task force members, please, let me start with my two colleagues on the council. Do you have comments or questions you'd like to make? Comments in general or questions for Maria?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you've summarized what I was going to talk to, as well with Maria, and I just want to thank everyone for coming out for our first public meeting. I just want to add that I think the most meaningful thing we've done is we've embraced that we have a problem and that we're going to do something about it. And we now all own it. So I want to thank council colleagues, the mayor, his administration, many members from our community for joining what will be a complicated and tough process that won't be solved by July. And so look forward to the work ahead in the partnership, and just ask that everyone continue to stay engaged in this meaningful process. So thank you.
Councilor Cahill, any comment?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate that we've heard a lot of comments. I think the interpretation of this being a marathon, not a sprint, sometimes it is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and sometimes it's challenging to appreciate that we're not going to solve this overnight, and that maybe we're moving more slowly than I think people would like to see.
I'm fine with how slow it is.
And maybe this is part of we need to work on our messaging, but I think that we are in fact doing a lot more than we're taking credit for. The Prop 283 that gave each counselor $1 million, I think many of the counselors are choosing to do projects that are driven by Vision Zero ideals
Are
to
they?
reduce the fatalities and injuries that we're talking about. So I think that is something that's immediately happening. I think that we also have seen a dramatic increase in the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All funding in partnership with Indigo that is bringing almost $20 million of really pedestrian-focused infrastructure tying into public transit. And I know that we've also got undecided yet, money coming from INDOT, certainly this year, and I believe also will happen next year as well under the federal DOT guidelines, which will also be focused very heavily on these types of projects. So it is not as simple as looking back at the budget itself. It doesn't operate in a vacuum. There is a lot more money towards this type of stuff that is happening. And
How
in
much
fact,
is enough
will
money,
happen
though,
before
Derek?
next summer. So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Other members of the task force, any general comments or questions for BNN? Director Herbert?
Yeah, I'll jump in briefly and maybe filibuster, give others a second to think about comments. But first and foremost, I would just say, Chairman Barth, councilors, thank you for your patience in working with me, with our department, as we work together to launch this. So let me take a step back, and if I may, and correct me if I get something wrong here or am oversharing, but this is a conversation that we started, John, last December? And so it's been a long road to get here, and I'd unpack that for a moment so that members of the public either watching or here today understand why that's important. It's important because when we talk about systems, even government, exist in a system, right? Top to bottom, federal, state, local, forgive me for for oversimplifying, but we have to play by the rules that the local MPO or INDOT, as was just referenced, or whoever we're applying for additional funding and resources set. And so in working together, being patient, being thoughtful about our approach, we now have a new system, this task force in place that I believe can play by those rules so long as those rules aren't changed. And so I think that's going to set us up for quicker success in the future. And I also think that this forum is something that we sorely needed, as has been stated by Maria, and thank you again for the work that you're going to do for us in partnership as we move forward. We're proud of the work that we've done to date. We don't take a lot of credit for it. We don't talk about it, and we certainly don't talk about it to people
Why don't you just
and
fix the
with
fucking
people
roads?
in the way that we need to, and that's something we need to get better at. And I think this venue, this forum, will allow us that space to more routinely update, take feedback, and have that back and forth that we really need to not just move the needle, but move the needle in a way that people feel empowered and that they're seeing and feeling the change and part of that change, which I think is important as we seek to change the culture. So that's my 2 cents. Just thank you for the patience. Thank you for the trust in the department. And it's bigger than the department, right? This is a safe systems approach, as has been discussed. If you Google that quickly, if you're not familiar, you can find it on the federal DOT website. This is not just about the built environment. This is not just about protected bike lanes.
Oh, God, I forgot this guy,
is about a
Philip.
whole
Fucking
variety
doesn't
of
stop
different
yapping.
things that we all need to work together on. And that's why this is such a big group, a diverse group, because it's going to take all of us working together to accomplish the goals that we have.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate it. Other comments or questions from members of the task force? I'm really hoping for a question. I'm going to hang in there for one more. Okay, great. Well, listen, again, I do want to thank the task force very much for your willingness to volunteer and spend your time working on this. You'll be hearing from us and what the next steps are. The most immediate next step is to plan for, we'll send out dates for the December meeting. That's when the BNN will be presenting on their first round, their first deliverable, I guess, to us as far as looking at peer cities and other information we need to proceed with doing the action plan. Plus other elements that we need to absorb and understand to make this vision into an actual executable plan. The last comment I'm going to make is just to thank Greg Stowers. He's the leader in the council staff. If you don't know that, he ably leads our council staff, and behind the scenes, he has pulled the levers to make this happen today. So we really appreciate your work, Greg. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll bring the first meeting of the Vision Zero Task Force to a conclusion. Thanks, everyone.
And there we go, a giant waste of time. So for those who don't know, too, this thing was at 4 o'clock p.m. So anybody that went to this meeting, they probably don't have a job. Or they have a job that's letting them leave very early. Like Andy Nielsen, he has no job. John Barth, he has his own business, I think. Derek Cahill, I don't know what he does, and everybody else here, they all work for the city, so they're already on the clock, and they probably get off at 5. The audience people, no idea if they have a job or not. I will never be able to go to these meetings, these committee meetings in person, because they all start at like obviously 4 o'clock. Most of them, if not all of them, start at like 5:30, and I can't get to downtown at that time. That's why I only go to the full council meetings, because it's at 7 o'clock. I can make those meetings, no problem. So overall, we already know what's going to happen. They're just going to be wasting your money on nothing, so they can feed these stupid ideas that will only solve very little, while also annoying the crap out of me and you. One more thing that I forgot to mention, though. One of the ways that I think Sweden was trying to curb the traffic deaths was limiting of how many people can get a driver's license. So I did the math, so I checked that out too. In Sweden, the cost of obtaining a driver's license can vary based on several factors, including the type of a license, but either way, it costs anywhere from $1,400 to $2,300 to get a driver's license, because they make you go through a driver's class, they make you go through probationary period, and then pay for the next class, and then probationary period. It's this whole crazy way of getting your driver's license where, like, it's not that much. Basically anybody can get a license. I don't even think you have to speak English or read English to get a driver's license now. It's very wild. So expect that to be happening in the future. At least maybe they'll make some kind of thing where only Marion County has to do that, but we'll see. I don't expect that to happen, but you never know. The Democrats are wild. You know what nobody is talking about, though? How we don't have this problem in red counties. That only seems to be a blue county thing. Think about that. Think about that. Places in Hamco, Hendricks, Johnson County, they don't need Vision Zero. And you want to know why? Because they enforce the traffic laws. When you have some scumbag person who has had 13 traffic violations, they make sure they can't have their license back. So you know what they'll do? They'll just come back to Marion County and rely on old Ryan Mears to expunge their cases so they can get their license back. You know, if it's working over there, it could work over here. But you have to have the people in charge to enforce it. So these are basically the questions that I have. How much for the consulting? What will be the pay for Vision Zero director, and how many people will be working under them? How much money has Columbus invested in? Maria, yeah, then I'm going to have a picture of basically this, of that, from that slideshow, of that with not only are you going to be bottlenecking everything from 4 to 2 lanes, but there's also no emergency lane, if you haven't noticed. Any thoughts on that? Also, any thoughts of, any thoughts that when you're bottlenecking these lanes from 4 to 2 lanes and traffic gets so clogged up, don't you know that people will start going through the neighborhoods, and then that means they're going to be doing 50 or 60 miles through these narrow streets? Any thoughts on that? And let's see, will you allow the public to speak? Nobody was able to speak. Sweden has been doing this for over 2 decades, and traffic deaths are still happening. How much money are you willing to spend before you push for IMPT to enforce the traffic law? Because that will solve everything. That will solve most of everything. And I should mention something about the prosecutors giving people their license back. I'll put that on there too. So those will be the questions that I will be sending to Cahill, which I expect a reply. Barth and Nielsen, which I will expect no replies from. And I also never heard anything from Dan Booth. Dan Boots. I even said something to Derek Cahill about John Barth not emailing me back. And it's like, hey, he's not going to email me back. He'll email you back. Can you let me know what's going on with the Fatal Crash Review team? So So that's all I got for now. I will let you know if anything happens. Maybe I'll do a special video. And here's another thing too, for all of you people out there. So this, what I was looking up the Vision Zero thing, this was on the Indianapolis video, the like Granicus, or however you pronounce that. I will be doing a live watch along that tonight. It is in 2 hours. I will be doing a live watch along. So, not that it matters. So just look under the live button, the live tab on YouTube, and then you can watch it. So that's all I got. Until next time.